Welcome back, Divas. I'm Dara, Cam, and we are going to dig into a jam-packed session in Tallahassee with today's special guest, Senate President Ben Albritton. We're looking ahead from the regular legislative session that kicked off last week to special session or more that the governor's called for later this spring. We also dig into the relationships between the state's three most powerful leaders, President Albritton, House Speaker Daniel Perez, and Governor Ron DeSantis, as they head into their final years in their leadership posts. As always, please stick around for a little fun with the Senate President that may or may not involve a pressure cooker, the kind you cook with, not the political variety. So please join me for today's special guest, Senate President Ben Albritton.
Sure, there was lots of disagreement last year as we were working through the process. Even as challenging as the system and the process and personalities and policy and all those things can be, in the moment, they can seem really frustrating. But at the end of the day, what happened last year yielded great products for Floridians.
You're listening to Deeper Dive with Dara Cam, a podcast by the News Service of Florida. Let's dive in.
I am so excited to be here in the Senate President's office with Senate President Ben Albritton. Thank you so much for inviting me back to do our legislative, this will be the first week of the legislative session. It's nice to see you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Well, first of all, you're very kind. I appreciate your kind words, and you're always welcome here. It's exciting. Looking forward to the session, and happy to chat with you about, whatever you'd like.
Okay, great. I have a bunch of questions for you, and you've
Really?
done this before.
Really?
You've done this before. We're going to go beyond the sound bites into what's on the agenda and what are the tensions, and we've got a lot to talk about. Let's dive right in. When Floridians think about the 2026 legislative session, what is the one headline you hope they remember 6 months from now?
So there's a lot of things in my estimation, listening to, looking at the media, and then, of course, listening to my constituents back home and others around the state, is really that I want the headline to be that, and I believe it'll be this way with the House, with the governor, with the Senate. But from my perspective, I want it to be that the Senate took Floridians and what their needs and challenges were seriously. And I believe that is the case. I believe that's what we did last year, and I certainly look forward to doing the same this year, that we were focused on Floridians, and that matters most.
So what do you think their needs and challenges are?
Well, I know this. I know that there are affordability challenges here in Florida, and that is something that resonates in every corner of the state. That is abundantly clear, right? Would be the best way to say that.
Mm-hmm. That's what my neighbors and I talk about all the time.
It's super common, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's super common. Also, I think Floridians expect us to even not just take a look at the affordability challenges and see where it is that Florida government can be energized and engaged in that fight with them, but I think they expect us to build a balanced budget, and they expect us to measure and to understand and to
wait.
Right?
Measure twice and cut once. You didn't say it.
Measure 3 times and cut once.
Sorry.
Yes. Thank you for that.
I'm sorry, you triggered me.
Yes, ma'am. But I think they expect that, right? And they expect us to take a look at the world the way it is instead of maybe just the way we might like it to be, and understand that clearly and work together, at least here in the Senate for sure, work with our partners in the House and our partner, the governor, and come up with policies and in a budget that attacks those challenges.
Do you think people are kind of exhausted about the partisan infighting that we've seen, over the past couple of years, especially in Washington? We don't see it that much in the Capitol because last year we had sort of intra-party skirmishes. So, but do you think that Floridians are kind of tired of that?
Well, I'm not going to run the risk of speaking for Floridians as a whole, but I
Okay.
certainly can say this. I can say that I do know that, skirmishes are natural in the process because you've got the executive branch, you have the cabinet, of course, you have 40 senators and you have 120 House members, and the ratios of those that are Republicans, Democrats, and then I think there's one independent. I don't think there are any independents in the House, but we have one independent here in the Senate, and we all come from different backgrounds. We've experienced different things in our lives, so having disagreements is completely natural. It's a natural part of the process, and quite frankly, I think the way that my estimation is the way that Floridians view this is that they want each individual senator, each individual House member, and of course the statewide folks to be able to take their own perspective about this, which is the perspective of their constituency. And sometimes, it doesn't always line up with everybody else. So that's when the second piece of this, and talking about the challenges, my whole life, and I've shared with you before on your podcast, my faith is what drives me every single day. And when I read through my word, my Bible, there's lots of times in the Bible to where, like, here's an example. Ephesians 4:29, right? Everything we say should be uplifting and encouraging to others. And, that gets very difficult sometimes in this process, but it's all part of being a bridge builder. And my hope is that as we go forward and we identify those places and those challenges of differential that'll happen between not just the House and the Senate, or the governor and the Senate, or the governor and the House, but even right here in the Senate, which is my specific responsibility, that we work hard to build bridges and get to a place to where you've heard me say this, right? We're listening to each other, we're being respectful of each other here in the Senate, and we're looking for a way to get to yes. And many times what I've found, just step away from partisanship for a second, many times what I've found is that when you really sit down, and this really goes to our Democratic colleagues, and sometimes the Republicans, but more specifically our Democratic colleagues, is that when you really sit down and talk to them about a challenge or a bill they file that's trying to solve a particular thing, we agree that we want to solve it or we want to do something about it. It's just the method that is being used or the type of solution that's being proposed to be able to solve it. And if you'll start, I've found this with the Senate, if you'll start with the why, and the why may be there's a particular circumstance to where you have, a children's issue, or maybe even a transportation issue or a healthcare issue. And if you start with what is it really, like, why are we looking at this?
Right.
What is it we're really trying to solve?
Right.
Then we can have an honest conversation. And I found that to be true in the Senate, an honest conversation about the how. But you can't get to the how unless you really understand the why and the what. So, that's been my goal. The Senate has been in lockstep, not with me as Senate President, but with each other as we're trying to provide these solutions. So that's what I think Floridians expect, and it's the right thing to do scripturally.
Well, as you're wrapping up in your final year as president, and you still have more time left in the Senate, should I ask you, are you going to stay in the Senate for your last 2 years?
Well, we'll see what the future has to hold, right? I know this, and yet again, you and I have talked about this. Wasn't looking to be in politics in 2010, but felt called and was not interested in being in the Florida Senate in 2018, but yet something happened. I felt called. So if the good Lord says to me that being in the Senate for 2 years is what he wants from me, then I'm going to be obedient. If there's something else that comes up or some other opportunity that comes up, and I feel called to do that, but then we're gonna run to that fight and we're gonna get involved. So, I'm open-minded.
Stay tuned.
That's probably the best thing. We'll see.
Tuned.
We're focused on Senate. The Senate in session right now, and we'll see what the spring has to hold.
and we'll be right back with Senate President Ben Albritton. Divas, you know what time it is. It's time for the news in haikus. The news in haikus. Bring down the gavel. Session's a pressure cooker. Still, we persevere. The news in haikus. The news in haikus. Don't forget, we'd love to hear your haiku. You can slide them into my DMs, or you can send them to podcasts, that's podcasts with an S, at e.newsserviceflorida.com. Wherever you're listening, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a rating if you like what we're doing. And we're back with Senate President Ben Albritton. What was the biggest surprise for you out of the last session coming in to your second year? What did you learn from the last session that you're bringing to the podium this year?
This might sound a little goofy. Okay, I'm going to own that right up front. But what I will say is...
We like goofy.
Okay. So I'll be goofy for a second. Sure, there was lots of disagreement last year as we were working through the process. It was more of, instead of a learning, really, and it's almost encouraging in a way as I reflected during the holidays on these things. It was almost like a confirmation for me instead of more of a learning. But it means a lot as I'm leading into this next session, is that even as challenging as things, the system and the process and personalities and policy and all those things can be, in the moment, they can seem really frustrating. But at the end of the day, what happened last year yielded great products for Floridians. And it's not lost on me that we got to the place we needed to be. And there were hurdles and challenges and everywhere kind of all at once, right? Everything all at once. But in the end, we had good products. We had a great budget. It was great for Floridians. It reaffirmed for me, that's maybe the better word. It reaffirmed for me that the process is the process. The challenges will be the challenges. But as long as we all, the Senate, the House, the governor, and we did last year, as long as we stay focused on what the end game is, and that is to do good for Floridians, we can get that result.
Let's address this right now and then get it out of the way, and then we can move on, because you brought it up, that there were tensions, there were, maybe I brought it up, I don't know, but that old trick. But there was a very, there were strong words. The House Speaker was very unhappy with you. I don't know if this is the correct words that he used, but indicated that you reneged on a deal that you all had said you had a agreement, reached the terms of an agreement, and then you didn't after the governor said that it was DOA, I think is the words that the governor used. Tell our listeners now in the beginning of session, are there hard feelings? Are you and the speaker talking? Did he misrepresent whether you had a deal or not? There was just 3 questions right there, but what is the relationship like? And is that just, are you over it now?
The 100%.
Okay.
Yes. I have respect for the speaker. I walked over and just caught up with him one day, and it was a great conversation. And, I will tell you, Danny Perez is going to be a friend of mine for the rest of my life. I respect him. He's a strong leader. He is very principled in his policy and in their budgeting process. And he's going to be a friend the rest of my life, and I will never veer away from that. This is 2026, and I am ready for this session coming up. I believe the speaker is as well. I look forward to working with him. We're gonna work through, whatever it is that pops up. I'm committed to. I believe that he is as well, because he's a good leader. And good leaders look at these things, and we may have frustrations or we may have challenges. But again, it goes back to staying on task and making sure that we're using our principles and getting to a place to where we're doing good for Floridians. And I will say and reiterate with you again that I have zero hard feelings with the speaker, and look forward to working with him. And, once we get into session and the interaction starts to happen, and we're just coming off the holidays, and, everybody, not just the speaker and I, but everybody in the Florida legislature, cabinet included, needed holidays to, remember what's really important,
right,
and spend time with family. And I know Danny's family super important to him.
Got
and
a young family.
Young family. And, once we get started in session, I look forward to spending more time with him and working closely with him.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I did a podcast with Jason and Forrest yesterday, and we spent about half an hour talking about special sessions before we even got to the regular session. So I guess I'll let you choose. Do you want to talk about the regular session? Let's talk about actually, I'm going to correct
whatever you want.
Thank you,
about
because
that?
I'd like to let you talk about rural renaissance.
Okay.
Let's start with that. I should have probably led with that. Instead, I led with the harder stuff. But, you're making a second attempt at getting the rural renaissance package passed. What does success in that regard look like to you, and what are you hoping to achieve?
Well, here's just some things that I will say that are really, really important. So the rural renaissance, this last year, and again, it's just part of the process. And I want to say this up front too, the rural renaissance package is full of a lot of stuff, and it is very comprehensive. And sometimes when you're doing things like that, regardless of being a Senate President or a Speaker, a Governor, a Commissioner of Agriculture, whatever, like big stuff, sometimes this takes time. Mm-hmm. The system, by all the members, the people that are, the districts that are influenced by it, or those that are not influenced by it.
The stakeholders.
The stakeholders, right?
Yes.
They've got to really understand it and dig in and really get a solid grasp of it. So what I would say is, we're taking another run at that this year. It was fantastic this last year, which was an incredible encouragement. That's the right word, encouragement. Was that we got a letter and I reached out to from the USDA Secretary, Brooke Rollins. I had a great conversation with her. Fantastic leader in her own right, supportive of the rural renaissance. But here's what's really interesting. I'm hopeful the bill will pass this year, of course, right? But I will also say that there's just over $200 million of rural health care enhancements that are coming out of the federal government that are coming here to Florida. That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
And I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting that any of that's happening because of rural renaissance and the goals that we provided here are hoping for in Florida. But President Trump and the folks in Washington have recognized that across America, rural Florida is struggling, and they're looking at platforms like this. That rural healthcare bunny is a prime example of how rural Florida, rural America is on the minds of elected officials across the country. So I'm hopeful to get it passed this year. I have every expectation over the coming months and maybe even years that regardless of what happens here in Florida, that the focus on rural Florida, rural America, including rural Florida, will not change at the federal level either, and that it'll be something even more important than just passing a bill is that it'll become like a perpetual focus. That's what matters the most. It's not a flash in the pan.
Not just a one and done.
Correct. That is correct. So that's a lot to say. I'm hopeful. I'm going to work closily with all parties, and hopefully we can get it done this year. But if not, I have every expectation. Rural Florida is on the radar, and that in itself is important.
That kind of, I guess we'll do the weave then, Mr. President, because instead of sticking with the legislative session, but you're talking about rural issues. Property taxes, that's one of the things that the governor said you maybe need to come back for a special session after the special session that he called for April on redistricting. So there's a lot of agita about...
I'm from Wauchula. You're going to have to help me about what that means. I don't have the vocabulary that good.
Heartburn.
Heartburn? Okay,
Heartburn.
gotcha.
Yes, my grandfather was from the old country. Ask President Pasadomo what agita is.
I will do that.
She will tell you. The property tax issue, there's a lot riding on elimination of or a sharp reduction of property taxes for rural communities, as you well know. What can they expect in, I don't know, in the regular session, or the House wants to move along during the regular session? What can we see on property taxes?
Well,
crystal ball me.
Now look,
here.
I want to
take out your crystal ball.
I want to be clear. My crystal ball broke last year, and but there's a lot to unpack there. If you would let me ramble just
do
a
it.
minute.
I rambled.
I'm going to try to cover it. The first thing is that I want to give the governor credit for beginning the conversation of property tax reform in Florida. Yeah, that's the first time actually, excuse me, when he brought it up, the first time that I'd really put real thought into it, and he gets credit for that. Second of all, I want to give the House and the Speaker credit for putting out the proposals they put out to begin the conversation. And I think those are the words that the Speaker has used, and I applaud that. I do. And there are some things they've put out that we're looking at very closely to understand the financial implications of those, and how to find balance. I mean, what you're really suggesting is that from the agita, the heartburn, is uncertainty. And what we're doing here, I think same thing they're doing in the House, and I'm sure the governor is as well, is trying to figure out, what is the sweet spot for all of this. And if you go back and look now, third, if you look at the growth of local budgets, right, over the last several years, and what I'm saying is fact, it's not opinion or any of that, right? The fact is this: when you go back and look at local budgets, you figure in population growth and you figure in inflation. They've grown substantially, in many cases more than those measurements would have allowed the base budget, the ongoing budget, say 4 years ago. It's grown past that measure, right? So does that tell me two things? The answer will be yes, that it's creating additional strain on homeowners in Florida. Absolutely. Check the box, understand it, see it, know it. It's there. Secondly, is there room to have some reform in property tax rates here in Florida? Of course there is. That's what that tells me, those two things. The question that needs to be answered, and what we're working on here, is that I've said this before, and I believe it to be the most important piece. Homeowners in Florida, and everybody in Florida, Floridians, expect when they dial 911, somebody's coming.
Yeah.
Right? They expect their garbage to be picked up.
Yeah,
they expect their toilets to flush. They expect all the things, the core services. They expect a quality education system. These are expectations in the great state of Florida.
They also expect the library to be free. So that's not maybe a core government service. Some people might not think that's a core government service. They also like the community center down the street from me and the free range chickens in Lafayette Park. They don't want to have to pay to go to the local park. Do you know what I mean? So who gets to decide what's a good use of taxpayer dollars and what isn't? Is that something that you have to balance when you're thinking about? And I didn't mean to take you away from what you were saying, but you know what I mean, right?
That's a very good analogy. Excuse me. Please forgive me.
You're fine.
That's a very good example and analogy of the balance we're trying to find. And, that takes time. the conversation about property taxes is incredibly complicated. It's not simple math. It's not algebra. It's trigonometry. It really is. So, it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to try to understand what that is. And obviously, I've had a lot of the local elected officials, sheriffs and police chiefs and first responders that have, been interactive with me and just wanting to make sure. And I tell everybody this, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? I tell everybody, just breathe. Just breathe. Use last year as an example. Bumps in the road, hurdles, swerves, curves, straight shots. At the end of the day, we came up with a good result. And I believe that this legislature, not just the Senate, but I believe that the House, the Senate, and the governor are going to come up with what can work and what will be meaningful. Now, I just also want to end with this. I am thoughtful. I am working hard to be thoughtful. Not king of the Senate. We have, there's 40 senators, 39 now, but there's 40 senators. They all have perspective. They've earned that perspective, and they have opinions. And my role is to work closely with them to help facilitate the role and the process of the Senate. So that being said,
right.
But there is one undeniable truth. The undeniable truth is that this entire discussion is not about the Senate. It's not about the House, not about the governor. It's about Florida homeowners. And as long as we, in my estimation, my experience over the years in government, as long as we keep our eye on that ball, we're going to come up with the right decision together, and we're going to be able to help Floridians and Florida homeowners.
Well, is there anything that the governor might want you to do that you would think is a bridge too far, that you would just say the Senate is just a hard no on that, especially about the property tax, like just totally eliminating property taxes without some kind of safety net included in there? And I'm not saying, let me just make it clear, I'm not saying that he is suggesting that. I'm just saying, because we keep hearing Speaker Perez say, like, where's the plan? Where's the plan? But you know what I mean? Like, is there anything that would be just a hard no for the Senate? So
I've found, ironically, a lot like the Speaker and a lot like we try to do as a body here in the Senate, I've found the governor to be very principled and have, he's looking, when he brought up property taxes, he's not wrong. And I'm not going to speak for the Speaker, but they put out proposals. I think the Florida legislature said, yeah, we see that, and let's work on that. So I found the governor to be somebody, very principled. He is interactive, really, right? I watch him in his, anyhow, at the end of the day, what I'm going to tell you is that I have a goal. And I don't know about bridge too far on this, that, or the other. We'll see what happens during session, right? Those are like game time calls. But I will tell you this. I will tell you that I believe, and not just because it is in the best interest of Floridians and my glass is half full, I believe that the Speaker and the House and the Senate and the governor are going to figure this stuff out. We're going to work it out. And at the end of the day, we're going to do the right thing. Okay. That's going to happen. And it may not be everything the Florida Senate wants. It may not be everything the governor wants. It may not be everything the House Speaker and the House want. But at the end of the day, it will work. Now, that matters the most. And again, just like being focused on Florida homeowners, if we're focused on that goal, it's going to happen. Again, it happened last year.
That's right. It does happen,
Yes.
and it's everybody, it does feel like, oh my gosh, I won't say the end of the world, but drama, right? There are moments of drama, which it's like reporter catnip when there are moments of drama, especially when one party controls all the levers of government, really. In Tallahassee, at least, it's kind of, there's a healthiness to tension sometimes from the reporter's perspective, especially. So that makes it a little more interesting as somebody who's been doing this for a long time. And
that's fair. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I just
makes up, but please forgive me, but it also makes us better.
Does it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, sometimes you can walk into a situation and have a certain perspective. And somebody shares something that's different, a lot of times you can't say, well, you're just wrong.
Yeah, you have to do a reset.
Right. Or at least, you've heard me say this too, right? Here in the Senate, and I've worked hard to do it on other partners, but in the Senate, listening matters.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know about catnip, and that's
reporter cat.
you.
It was
Yeah.
reporter catnip.
But I will just tell you that I don't believe that there are Floridians, any party, any demographic. I do not believe that the average Floridian wants groupthink in Florida government. I don't think they do. I think they want people expressing different ideas. I believe they want us being an idea factory. I think they want us to debate ideas. They want us to figure out what is the best win-win. And if everybody's just going along with whatever, it's pretty hard to get that done. And I say that in not response, but, the idea that sure, the debate and the process, it makes us better. It does.
Well, thank you for that. I guess I was going to ask about, we mentioned the budget. You touched on that a little bit, and there was a lot of work on the budget last year, went into a little bit of overtime. And, we talk about tensions, and I hate to keep bringing it up again, but it's not just the House and the Senate that has tensions. It's the House and the governor. It's almost like the Sharks and the Jets. If you ever watched West Side Story, and if you haven't, it's a great.
Yes.
Yeah. So, do you think that any of that tension is going to spill over into the legislative process or into the budgetary process, or not?
Well, I don't know, right? I mean, my goal again is to be a bridge builder, and I'm gonna stay with that poise and that position. So, we'll see as we get into it. But I still go back to say this. I think you have a House Speaker and a House that are truly well-intentioned, and you've got a governor and his folks in his office that are truly well-intended. I know that's the fact here in the Senate. I can see it in the comments and just the eyes of the other senators when we're communicating. They're well-intended. As long as we're there, it's going to be fine.
Okay, I have a couple more serious questions.
Okay.
I saw you looking at your watch, and then I have some fun ones.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm good. Somebody was calling me. I just want to make sure it wasn't Missy. That was all.
Some new fun ones, and the reason I'm looking is I'm just making sure everything is working okay, because that's what I'm doing. I was going to ask about what is one misperception that you think that the people might have about the legislature that you could correct as the Senate president, or something that you think people say to you about the way the sausage is made when you go back home that you think is that people have wrong about Tallahassee? Or is there anything?
Wow, what an incredible question. I've not been asked that question. I think ever.
Trying to mix it up a little,
hey,
sir.
Good on you. Good on you. I think it probably goes back to what I just described, honestly.
That's what I was going to say, that everything's already pre-planned. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
100%.
And I already had that question in my list, and I was thinking that was kind of an answer to that question before I asked it.
I think you're right. I think the average person in Florida may feel like that, struggle and conflict in the political process is somehow wrong. But I go back to, it makes us all better. And so it actually can produce really good results, and it presses the system to come up with good results or better results, or staying focused on the end game, the end goals, and all of those things. So I believe it'd probably be that, right?
Okay, yeah, I think so. And
I also want to say this too, is that in every session that I've been a part of, 8 years in the House, and this is my 8th year in the Senate, they've all been different.
Yeah.
You get a set of presiding officers for 2 years on either side, and then the governor for 8 years, and I'd spent time in the House with Rick Scott when he was governor. So every session is different. So it takes looking at whatever the challenges are in the context of the personalities and the processes and the circumstances for every year.
Yeah.
So
you also have President Trump, who is a factor that I don't think you've had a lot of that in previous, maybe during his first term, but that presidential influence, it hasn't been as significant, I don't think, until we had President Trump on the state legislative process.
Well, I would agree. I would say on the entire country.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding Florida, I would say the entire country. So sure, you have to look at every piece of every circumstance and every different circumstance that comes with every legislative session, and you can use, this is where it goes back to, you use the same philosophies and you use the same principles, but the circumstances around all of that, it's different every year. So the biggest challenge is to, and this is the big job of being Senate President. It's not, telling senators, what to do. It's learning what their value structures are, learning how they feel about certain things, looking at the Senate in an aggregate way, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter, independent, looking at it in an aggregate way and pulling together a consensus. And the circumstances that are in and around the Senate as a whole sometimes can make that difficult. But, you have seen, and I have seen, and one of the things that I have done is I have worked very hard to make sure that senators know some very important things. The first is, and I'm in a very meaningful way, I love every single one of them. And I want what's best for them. I want what's best for their constituents. Although they may even disagree. The constituents in Tina Polsky's district are going to be very different than the constituents in Ben Albritton's district in Florida's heartland. But they many times are exposed to the same challenge. So, it goes back to bridge building, goes back to building consensus, and that, I consider that my role. And we'll take the circumstances as they come, and we'll just keep moving forward.
Is there an issue, a legislative issue you think is under the radar that we might be seeing more attention being paid to? Is there something that's popped out that's trending for you, or anything, any surprises maybe?
So I don't know that it's something that's on the minds of, everyday Floridians, but certainly up here, one of the challenges we have, a couple of years ago, the legislature and the governor instituted, this is under President Passidomo and Speaker Renner, introduced and essentially got done universal vouchers for education.
Thank you. I was going to ask you about that.
So there's the financing system for education in Florida is called the FEFP, the Florida Education Financing Program, but FEFP. And what we have found is, and this is fascinating to me, it really is, what we found is that philosophically, the legislature and the governor are supportive of universal vouchers. What we found is that the system that they call it butts and seats, but the system that produces the funding through the funding model and how those funds are distributed has some shortcomings. And there's been time since, and we've learned this, there have been time since we instituted this. There are folks that provide education, whether it be public or charter or private. There are folks that provide education that are educating a child. This is because of the mobility of children now and parental choices. But that there are schools that are educating a child that aren't getting paid for it.
They don't know where the money is. Where's the money?
There are others that the student's not there, but they're getting paid for it.
Right.
Because they may have left charter school and gone back to the public school system or vice versa or whatever. So this is a prime example, by the way. We know that that's a challenge. the entire Tallahassee.
You've
knows.
identified the challenge.
Everybody knows it's
Right.
a challenge, right? So really,
Right.
what we're working through is, and I'm hopeful that we can find a good solution this year, is that we haven't been able to yet, and I don't view this as something critical. We haven't been able to yet to try to figure out exactly how we're going to solve that problem with the House. It's about different perspectives, right? Whether you break them out and you put them below the line, or whether or not you segregate them in the vouchers in a separate category somehow, or you add. There's 67 school districts. Do you add a 68th school district inside the system that's for the voucher program itself, so it gets segregated and isolated so it's more accountable? Yeah, we haven't quite been able to figure it out. We're getting much closer, which is good news for Florida.
When you say you don't think of it as critical, you mean you don't think that your differences between the House and the Senate's approaches thus far are critical in terms of it's like you're at an impasse? Yeah.
I'm not looking at it because we haven't quite figured out how to get on the same page yet. I don't view that critically.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify for anyone. Yeah.
But
because it is kind of a critical issue if you can't. I mean, it's hundreds of millions of dollars that
100%
are missing or can't be accounted for. And, one of the people that I was talking to about this recently suggested that this went into effect after the law was passed. I think the Department of Education had 41 days, and Step Up for Students or whoever is handling the vouchers, they had a very, very short period of time to start implementing this. Do you think that maybe this was that the trigger was pulled too quickly on that it needed to be eased in a little? I mean, it's hindsight now, but maybe that might be part of the problem.
So potentially, right? There's likely other things that we've learned since then that we could go into and probably drone on for an hour about
we don't want to do that.
Various things. But what I will tell you is that that's one of the values that I think that the Florida legislature meeting every year creates value.
Yeah.
And we also have very good systems here in Florida that provide for measures that expose these kind of challenges, right? Our partners at the local level understand this stuff too, right? So there's this amount of transparency in all of this that helps the legislature understand, hey, this is a thing, and we need to do something about this. But it it happens. There's a lot of things that we do here that transportation's a prime example. There's probably not a better transportation system. Now, I don't mean roads. I mean the system of developing transportation and intermodal stuff and all of those things, the funding mechanism, the 5-year plan, all of those things that go into transportation planning and construction in Florida. I would say it's best in the nation. And it's been fine-tuned over years, right? So it's super predictable. It measures very effectively what needs will be. It sees out into the future pretty darn well on population growth and vehicle use growth and all of those things. The education system, when we made the voucher change, was not set up that way.
Right.
In retrospect,
it's a structural change.
Sure, right? So what we're really talking about is, and this is what I think is important, not just for your listeners, but for people around the state to know, it's not that if we do something substantial, it's good for Florida families, it's good for transportation, it's good for healthcare, it's good for whatever, that as we move on and we go forward from making decisions that are good, I think empowering families with the scholarships, I'd do that again tomorrow. But going forward, we identify these things. That happens in everybody's everyday life. I mean, they make a decision to do something, buy a certain kind of dog or buy a certain kind of vehicle or
chicken,
right?
Clip their wings.
Well, they decide they want chickens, whatever it is, right? I mean, there's
I'm
many
sorry,
times.
I don't mean to be
No, it's all
fixated on
good.
the chickens,
Dogs. I'm the one that brought that in. Sorry. But what's important for Floridians is that we move in the right direction, and I would suggest every day vouchers is the right direction. And then if we see and once we do learn that there are challenges inside the system that we need to look at, build consensus around a solution, that we do that. It doesn't
Not
mean
be
we're
afraid
wrong.
to say we need a fix or a tweak or whatever.
100% yes. That's exactly right.
Sometimes it's hard for leaders to do that because they have to admit that you're not wrong from the 30,000-foot level, but you have to admit that maybe you made a mistake or you did it too quickly or should have had this included or that included. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah. And I would say that you're right. Sometimes it can be difficult, but the right thing to do is to identify what it is. If it's there, if it's a challenge, right, wrong, or indifferent, if it's a challenge and it's impeding a better system, a better opportunity for Floridians in whatever way, to just ignore that is wrong. And you don't have to just say, hey, you know what, we blew it, because I don't think we did.
Right.
The voucher system empowered parents and families, and heck yeah, I'm all in for that. But we have some tweaks we need to work on, right, to make the system better. There's rarely a time in government, right, that, and we should always be asking certain things in government, I think. And part of it is, other places, right? Government efficiency has been a big focus for the speaker and I and the governor. Government efficiency, right, as new technologies, new systems, new processes, new challenges, society changes, right? If we don't watch for those things and try to always adapt and to be efficient.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, shame on us, right?
Right.
Shame on us.
Yeah.
And then secondly, it's not as much, and I'm not trying to push back on it. It's not as much as saying, hey, we were wrong. It's just that life changes. Things change. And we've got to also ask the fundamental question in state government, is this a role for government? Right? Is this something government should be doing? And if it is, then we ought to be doing it the best we can. And you check the first box, and then you move to number 2. Is this as efficient as possible? I'm not sure you can ever really check that box, because it's a pursuit of perfection, maybe, is what it is. We're pursuing perfection. That's super hard. Yeah.
Well, I think in this case of the education, I think I'm glad that you raised it as an issue that maybe we're not, most Floridians might not know about, but it is, I don't think to say we need to know where the money is, make sure the money's following the child is pursuing perfection. I think that's kind of a basic starting point.
Yeah,
right?
I'm thinking about systematically, right?
Okay. Yeah,
programmatically, right? Like
I
we're
got you.
pursuing. We want the most accountable system we can produce.
Sure.
We want the most efficient system we can produce, and that's the pursuit of that level of perfection.
Right. Okay. I hear you. I hear you on that. Let's talk about. We've got the special session on redistricting. We can talk about that later. I did ask you a question, unless you have something that you want to add about that. You said you're looking at you're considering that the Senate hasn't come up with a plan or isn't moving forward with that, but I guess you'll come back and address that in April. Am I correct, or?
So we'll see. I'm not exactly sure yet, right? And here's what I mean by that. And I would like to. Could we go back to property taxes for a second?
Sure.
Property.
We're doing the weave, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you for the flexibility. So one thing that I do. And again, the House has done a great job beginning the conversation. They've thrown some ideas out there, and they get full credit for that. My perspective on this really is pretty simple.
Okay.
And that is, this is going to be on the ballot, right? So it's Floridians' decision.
That's right. And it takes 60% of Floridians to approve it. And so
Correct.
If you put something on there and they don't like it, and 60% is a lot.
It is a lot.
Then, a little bit of mud on your tires.
It should be a lot, by the way, because you're talking about changing the Florida Constitution.
Right.
What I would say is that the proposal on the ballot should be clear, concise, It should be to where, and believe me, I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting Floridians are not smart. They're plenty smart. What I would say is, though, when they're going down ballot initiatives, right, and they read this thing, they need to say in their own mind, they need to be able to fully see, this is what we're talking about. This is what it's going to do.
Those property tax initiatives, I've seen them before, and the legislature's put them on before, and they've failed. They are very complicated sometimes.
Yes. My goal,
and to get to where you want to go,
clear, concise,
is going to be complicated.
Yes, clear, concise, but it's worth the effort. It's worth running to the fight.
Right.
So clear, concise, something, a single thing that people can read and say, got it, and make their mind up, yes or no. It's really that simple. So I want to. That's the pursuit of perfection in that case.
Okay.
So anyhow, back to redistricting.
Yes.
One thing that I will say is that yes, ma'am, I did see where the governor has called for the special. There is real validity, I believe, in waiting to find out about the Supreme Court decision on the bill or the case that's there. I think it's out of Louisiana.
It is Louisiana.
It deals with
That's right.
the Voting Rights Act and providing some clarification before we get fully engaged in what districts may or may not look like. I think it's valid. I feel good that it's valid, that we understand that decision is hopefully going to happen this spring. So that'll give some good clarification for the legislature as we're looking forward on this to.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you think that it needs to be done, though? Do you think you need to do a mid-decade redistrict? I know the governor does. Mm-hmm. Do you think that you need to redo it, or can it wait until the new census comes out?
Now, I'm going to answer that question directly, but I want you to also know, in my view, it's also a little more complex.
Yes, it is. Answer. And I should have set it up because that case could decide that some of the districts that are currently drawn in Florida and elsewhere might be discriminatory because they favor Black or minority candidates, right? That's what we're talking about.
So the answer to the question is yes, I do. But there's more to it than that, right? It's more than just, and we'll see when the case is settled and when the Supreme Court rules, we're going to see far more clearly those districts you're talking about, whether or not on that case, they are in adherence with the principles of district boundaries and redistricting as a whole. But I will also say this. This is where it gets a little more complicated, in my opinion, but I think it's worth having a discussion about. Normally, and I know your listeners likely know this, and Floridians likely know this.
They're very sophisticated.
They mirror you. So, we normally do redistricting every 10 years with a census.
That's right.
Because of various factors. But let's go back. Every congressional district should have X number of people. It's meant to be that every congressional district in the state of Florida contains within a small margin of error the same number of people.
Right.
Because that equal representation, right? The amount of population growth that Florida has had over the last 3 years has been substantial. I don't know that we have ever seen, maybe save when Florida was first being developed, the number of people that moved here for opportunity in the Sunshine State has ever been paralleled. So, that is something that's on my mind because I do heavily believe that equal representation matters. So do I understand clearly how to get there? No, ma'am. But we are also talking about, again, a very complex thing, and I'm just sharing a little perspective.
I'm going to ask you a hard question.
Okay.
Do you think that we live in a society where people of color are not discriminated against anymore? Do you think we need to do away with the Voting Rights Act?
I think there's a lot of circumstances that go along with that. What I will do is I will speak for me. And I have a lot of close friends that are Black, that are Hispanic, that are white. And the way I was raised that, everybody in society should be treated. And I'm going to go back to my faith here because I think it is the thing that drives me, and it's where perspective comes from. Everybody is supposed to be treated the same, and everybody is supposed to be treated with, and it's more than just that, right? Kindness, respect. It's very clear in the Bible, love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't say, love one particular kind of neighbor like yourself and then another not, right? Yeah. This is going to be a little naive, but it still goes back to biblical principles, and that is the responsibility for how society operates and the way we treat each other is an individual responsibility. And it should be a pursuit of, regardless of whether or not it is driven by law, all right? It should be, and maybe this is a little naive, it should be driven by a goal of each individual to love their neighbor as themselves. And it doesn't matter, man, woman, black, white, Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, that's what I'd like to see. Sure, it's naive, right? It's what I pursue every day. And I would say that here in the Florida Senate, one of the I'll maybe get off the rail for a second, but one of the things that I knew coming into being Senate President is that the most important thing that I could do was to show love and respect to every senator. I'll give you an example. Carlos Smith, Senator Smith. There probably aren't two men any different than me and Carlos.
Probably not.
Probably not. But you know what I've done?
For anybody who doesn't know, Carlos is a gay Democrat from Central Florida.
Yep. And I'm a conservative,
an activist.
Conservative Republican
LGBTQ activist.
From Florida's heartland, a farmer. But yet he and I, we get along great because he knows my point of view. I know his point of view, but we work very hard to move past that. There are difficulties in that, but we communicate well and we spend time together. I love him as much as anybody else. And the fact is that I put into the system, and this is my own way of trying to counter what I was describing earlier, the second most powerful force in the world is self-interest. Period. End of story. The most powerful force in the world is love. Period. End of story. The only way that you can overcome self-interest, and this word society gets hard, the only way you can overcome self-interest is with love. Love. 1 Corinthians 13:13. I inserted that into the mantra of the Florida Senate in my first opening speech, and I've been consistent. It's on my challenge coins. It's everywhere I am. And then these three remain: faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these is love. On my laptop, I've got a sticker, and it's pretty simple. Less hate, more love. We focus on that. I'm just telling you, if we do that as a society, yes, maybe that's a little naive, but somebody's got to lead the message, right? And I think that's why God put me here. So if we can do that as society, a lot of this other stuff, it gets naturally overcome.
It's a wonderful, beautiful concept. And, you want to call it naive or you want to call it, idealistic or whatever. It's great to say we should all love each other and we should love our neighbors. And, I 100% endorse that. My question is that the society that we live in, or is that aspirational? If that's aspirational, do we need to have guardrail? I mean, we talk about this another time, but you gave me a very replete answer. But the question, I think, is, have we achieved that aspiration so that we don't need guardrails in the law to ensure that that's being carried out?
I would say to you that we have not achieved that. The larger question is that are we working hard enough in society on an individual basis to achieve it?
I love that answer.
That it's true. Yeah, but it's true, right? And it's not about...
Get off Twitter, people.
Yeah, how about that, right? But here's the deal.
That might help.
We're seeing, just kind of forget about like law for a second.
Okay.
There are things like anti-Semitism.
Yes.
That are creeping in, right, to society. And what we've learned is, and this I think proves what I said, is that it doesn't matter if it's Christian, atheist, Jew, Muslim. It doesn't matter if it's man, woman, black, white, Hispanic. Society, it needs more love and action. Mm-hmm. And what I have found in my own life, and I'm speaking from somebody that has worked hard to practice this, not in perfection, but I've worked very hard to practice this, is that there's nothing, we talk about freedom a lot in politics, and people back home talk a lot about freedom. There's nothing more free than to be free of hate. Nothing.
Resentment, I heard this the other day. Resentment is like drinking a glass of poison and waiting for the other person to die.
Oh, wow. I've never heard it put that way. Yes.
Isn't that great?
That is great. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I've been spreading that around.
I didn't mean to get into philosophical.
I love that we had a philosophical discussion. You want to do some fun ones?
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If the cafeteria had to serve one Ben Albritton special every day, what would be on the plate?
My grandmother's recipe of chicken and rice.
Ooh, chicken and rice.
I will just say this.
I might be able to hook you up.
I'm going to say I have a recipe. I can remember as a child being. We were very close to my mother's grandparents.
Yes.
My dad's parents passed away years and years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
80 and 85.
Oh, well, that's not
So
bad.
I was essentially raised from a grandparent's perspective with Nana and Papa, my mother's parents.
Right.
And she had this old pressure cooker, the kind with a jiggler, on the top.
I thought you were going to say fried chicken.
No, and she would, and it was all, she had done it so many times. There was no measuring. It was all like by eye.
Right.
But it's perfect every time. So I have experimented over and over and over, and I don't use the pressure cooker that has a jiggler on top, but I use the Instapot, right?
Right.
Like the new age kind of pressure cooker.
Yes.
And, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I finally nailed it. And I know what chicken to look for. I know what kind of rice to use. I know the ratio to use. I know the season to use. And every single day in the cafeteria, my grandmother's chicken and rice.
So maybe next year you'll be doing the reporter lunch with the Ben Albritton.
I can do it.
Chicken.
I can do it.
All
I
right.
guarantee you. I just add the number of, increase the number of broth and rice cups. Yes.
The best hidden gem in Florida that you wish more people knew about, or maybe that you'd like to keep secret?
The best hidden gem in Florida. So I do want to say this before I get started. I have one in mind.
Okay.
But I want to, I've had the ability I've been around the country some and I've seen some pretty cool things, right? I've done some out west and seen some of the national parks.
Yeah.
They're just gorgeous.
Gorgeous out there.
It would be where I live, the Peace River Basin. The Peace River.
It's beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous. And I would say, there's sometimes folks will canoe down it or whatever. It starts in South Polk County, and it runs through Southern Polk, Hardy, DeSoto, into Charlotte, into the Charlotte Harbor. And, obviously it gets larger and wider, deeper, the closer you get to the harbor. But, folks will canoe down that. But you can just see it's the geography that's on either side of the river that's just old Florida. I would say, look, if you're out there and you're looking for a canoe trip, come to Peace River. You will not be disappointed.
Oh, that's great. Peace River. So here's another quick one. Thank you for that. So what's your favorite form of communication? Email, text, or phone call?
None of the above.
IRL. You like IRL in real life.
In real life. Yeah. I am by nature a people person.
You are a people person.
You're kind, but
but you are.
God created me that way, and I would rather sit with somebody and talk with them, here's the thing, and sometimes we can get in trouble. I've done it myself. Guilty. You read a text and you think it means one thing, but the intent was something else, right? But when you sit with somebody and you talk to them and you look them in the eye and you're watching their facial expressions and their body language and all of those things. I mean, you talked about what is my favorite form of communication in real life.
So much is lost, and kids don't know it today because they're just doing everything by text. So much nuance is lost with just those words on a screen.
Yes,
so my last fun question is, what's your favorite app on your phone?
That's a good question. And by the way, I don't have a lot. My favorite app would be, I need a second. I want to think through. My favorite app on my phone would be probably, this is really going to be goofy.
Go for it.
Killer Sudoku.
Oh, yeah. You're a Sudoku guy, huh?
I like it. So Killer Sudoku is if I'm sitting and waiting, or if I'm, you know, commuting somewhere or doing something and scare up a little time on my hands, I pull it up and.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Do you Wordle?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Missy does.
See, I'm a Wordle. It must be right brain, left brain. Because the number thing, like I can't do the number thing with Sudoku, but the Wordle, my daughter and I every day. Mr. Senate President Ben Albritton, it has been such a treat sitting here and spending time with you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. You're a beautiful spirit. I appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida, hosted by News Service senior writer Dara Cam and produced by me, Mike Exline. Music for the podcast was recorded by Periodic Labs, LLC.